In honor of the upcoming holidays, I wanted to jump on here and talk about a hot topic that we've seen and heard a lot of lately, and that is estrangement or going no contact. The first ever National Estrangement Awareness Day was November 21st of this year, led by an advocacy group that I will leave linked below, that talks about all things related to complex trauma and advocating for the recognition of that. Fun fact, child abuse reporting did not exist in this country until 1977. So that means all generations born prior to 1977 have not had their childhoods viewed through a lens of trauma and what constitutes child abuse and how that affects our brain, our body, our behavior, and how we show up in the world. I think that's a significant fact worth noting that I'm not hearing validated or acknowledged in some of the discussions that are being had. So I wanted to include that. Why might we go no contact? So several years ago, I was doing some research and the work of Dr. Bruce Perry. He did a case study of a little boy named Jesse. So that's not his real name. And when Jesse was a young child, under the age of 10, I believe, he was beaten into a coma by a foster parent. And that's when Dr. Perry and his team came to do their interventions and assessments of Jesse at that time. Bruce writes about how he went into the hospital room. Jesse's in a coma. He's hooked up to a variety of monitors, checking his vitals. And he had a shirt that had belonged to the father or the foster father who had beaten him, and put it under the nose of the little boy who was in the coma, and all the monitors, everything went off the charts. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, his heart rate, everything just kind of spiked. And so clearly he was having a physiological reaction to just the smell of this individual. That locked in. Fast forward to probably 15 years later, I got to see Dr. Perry speak at a conference when I lived in Bend, and he had a follow-up on Jesse, which was also featured in the book that he co-wrote with Oprah, What Happened to You? Excellent book, highly recommend. Talks all about adverse childhood experiences, or the ACEs study. And he said that Jesse was now, in the book, he talks about this, Jesse is now living in a nursing home community, like a over 55 community, and was attending college and experiencing a ton of healing as a result of being away from the people who had harmed him as a child. And in that environment, he had sort of this surrogate family that was comprised of a lot of older adults who were calm and safe. Where does this fit into the estrangement discussion? Sometimes when we have made multiple attempts, repeated attempts to foster repair with family members who may have harmed us, and that behavior either doesn't change or isn't validated or is defended, we're left with little to no choice but to walk away. That being said, it's also the neurological, physiological, neurobiological responses that we have to loved ones, even if we've done some repair. Our body remembers those experiences. So things like neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, family members who won't protect us from individuals that are still part of the tribe, where we have to go to their house and, hang out with these people, environments that we may have been abused in, furniture that may still be in the homes of our loved ones. These are things that we're not really talking about. So here I am doing my best to do that. All those things can trigger memory, the smell of our parents or other family members, the town where we grew up, or where abuse may have happened. So while, yes, we're connected and maybe even we've forgiven and we've done a ton of therapy and all these things, that system in our body that lives in the limbic system can still be activated. So we can still experience triggers even if we've done all this great healing work, right? And so that's where neuroscience can really inform the boundaries that we're setting and why. So that it might be like, I love you, I forgive you. And if we're working recovery, we're recovering maybe from, substances or behaviors, that in order to protect our peace, it's not a selfish choice. It's a life-saving choice, right? To say that being around these spaces, these smells, these people, would send us back into, relapse. And we don't want to do that. We want to stay well. And so now there's this broader discussion happening about other forms of interpersonal, pain that kind of runs across a spectrum. That's what I'm hearing and seeing in the conversations from, a child who didn't get their way, saying like, cutting you off, mom, because TikTok said it's allowed, all the way to, severe trauma, abuse, and neglect, where that whole spectrum is valid, and to varying degrees, different tools and resources can be used to test repair and to see our capacity for maintaining that connection. So I wanted to share some resources. I'm looking at stacks of books that might be helpful to you if you're having to navigate that right now, heading into the holidays. I don't think that it is selfish. I don't think it's bad or wrong. I think that it is part of protecting our peace and our well-being, even when we have forgiven, even when we have peace about the past. That sometimes, even with the best of intentions, staying away is part of how we're going to stay well. And so, as I've already mentioned, the book, What Happened to You? Excellent. Co-written by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And in her talk, the podcast I was listening to this morning, I didn't get all the way through it, but I didn't hear her talk about her estrangement from her own parents, which I think is interesting. So her mother struggled with substance use and had abandoned her at different points in her childhood. And she had some, like verbal and emotional abuse from her father. And so that would be interesting to hear her talk about that, and how we can still live very full lives. One woman in the podcast that she just did talked about, what do we do with this longing, this desire to still have a parent when we've had to step away for whatever reason. And so I wanted to share this book. I recommend it to my clients all the time. It's called Mother Hunger. It was written by, where is she? Kelly McDaniel. And I believe she's an LCSW, How Adult Daughters Can Understand and Heal from Lost Nurturance, Protection, and Guidance. So the longing for our parents never goes away. Back in the day, I worked with kids who had literally been left in dumpsters and would still come to my office and say, I miss my mom. I want to go back. I want to see her. Even when it was really, truly not safe to do that. Does the longing to be loved, to be nurtured, protected, and guided ever go away? No, it doesn't. But we look for surrogates, and we become that. We learn to become that parent to ourselves to kind of fill that need. So this is an excellent book. Highly recommend. Codependent No More, Melody Beattie. So any sort of codependent recovery, really helpful. Learning how to set boundaries, and rather than like being that people pleaser, that one who always says yes when we want to say no, letting our insides match our outsides, and take our power back from people and places and experiences that made us feel powerless. So that's excellent. And then if you want a smaller version of codependent recovery, like if you don't want to do the 12 steps because 12 steps don't jive with you, I love this one. Cher, Hampton. I recommend this to like 90% of my caseload. So 9 steps to overcoming the fear of abandonment, stop people pleasing, and develop healthy relationships. This, more so than any book on codependent recovery or boundaries that I've ever read, gets right to the heart of the matter. You don't have to go through the book in a linear fashion. You can pick and choose, you know, if you're like, I need to work on this particular issue, that particular issue of those 9 chapters. This makes it really easy, and it's tiny, and it's not expensive. Very well done. Highly recommend. More specific and granular, if you don't like the word codependency, she also has the Set Boundaries and Change Your Life workbook. Again, life-changing strategies to set healthy boundaries in relationships, start saying no and be assertive. So that's another really good one on boundaries that I love. And then there is one other that is faith-based. So a lot of folks say like, oh, Jesus wouldn't abandon his family, and this is terrible, and boundaries are awful, and you know, you're supposed to honor your mother and father and do this and that, and because the Bible says. Well, here is a book that is based or rooted in scripture called Boundaries by Henry Cloud, and I forget Townsend's last name or first name, but Townsend and Cloud. Excellent book, scripturally backed support for setting healthy boundaries. Highly recommend that one. And then Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Excellent. I think this one has sold over 2 million copies, and it's a hit. So, those may all be really helpful in navigating, you know, do I go no contact, low contact, what feels right, and protecting your peace. This holiday season, this is really long already, and I could go on forever and ever. There's still a couple more books though that I want to share. Oh yes, if you are looking to have repair conversations, you want to do that in some safe and productive ways, highly recommend the work of I forget his name. Where is he? Well, anyhow, it's Nonviolent Communication, NVC. The founder's name is escaping me, but this book, Say What You Mean. Say What You Mean, a mindful approach to nonviolent communication. I thought it was Say What You Mean Without Being Mean, but that's not what it is. How to find your voice, speak your truth, and listen deeply. So this is really good as well. Again, none of this was scripted, and maybe it should have been, but I'm doing the best I can to get those resources out. So NVC is excellent, and if you're looking for a practitioner in that, I have a connection in Oregon who I highly recommend and love and adore. It's a nonprofit out there that I've worked with for many years, and so if you would like that name, feel free to message me. There's so much more I want to say. But sometimes, you know, we have to say goodbye. Sometimes we just do. And I think that's new. I think that's a new consideration. Back in the day, people didn't speak up and we didn't use our voices, especially women, and we tolerated a lot. And this year we have seen that come tumbling down in some really big and powerful ways. And I think that it is both painful and exciting. Necessary endings, clearing away. This is the year of the snake. So we are just shedding all that no longer serves us. And sometimes, you know, change, the catalyst for change is accountability. And so if people don't know that they're causing pain, they'll just continue doing what they've always done, right? And so now we're saying, hey, I don't like this, and this is not okay, and enough is enough. And how many other domains of society could benefit from that shedding, from that letting go of that which no longer serves us? And how will that transform us going into 2026 and, you know, the future beyond, to building something new, something that we have not yet realized individually and collectively. I think it's exciting. It's scary and it's painful, yes, but radically accepting ourselves and each other for who we are, grieving, mourning what we have lost, and then being hopeful about what's to come, right? So I personally don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I don't celebrate genocide and binge eating. I made that apparent when I was 15, kind of a declaration. And no shade or shame if you do. I still make a pumpkin pie, but I acknowledge that genocide is not a holiday. And a lot of the traditions that we've maintained are rooted in oppression and violence. And I think, we could have new holidays. And so, yeah, I think estrangement, going no contact, cutting off that which no longer serves our highest and best, is a conversation worth continuing to have. So I love you as always. This is 15 minutes. I have no idea. And